There is a particular kind of tiredness that comes from always presenting the strongest version of yourself. Not a physical tiredness, something more interior than that. The tiredness of spending years in situations where vulnerability is not available to you, where the expectation is strength always, and where showing the other thing is not something the role allows. And in that tiredness, what you most want is simple. Someone who already knows. Someone who has seen past the image, who knows what is underneath it, and who chooses to be present for both. John Wayne played the strong man for 50 years, in film after film, across a career that was one of the longest and most successful in Hollywood history. He embodied a particular version of American masculinity that audiences understood and trusted and returned to. The steadiness, the certainty, the quality of someone who could be relied upon to know what to do it without complaint, and to ask nothing in return except that the job was done. That was the image. And the image was based on something real. He was, by all accounts, genuinely steady, genuinely hard-working, genuinely committed to the professional standards that the image communicated. But it was not the whole of him. Behind it was a person who had doubts, affections, a warm and sometimes ribald humor, specific loyalties, and the ordinary human need to be seen in full rather than only in the image. His friendship with John Ford, the director who made many of his most significant films, was the one he returned to most often when the conversation moved to genuine loyalty. Ford was not an easy man. He was demanding and sometimes harsh, and given to a particular style of motivation that would not be tolerated today. He pushed Wayne hard, publicly, in ways that others sometimes found difficult to watch. And yet Wayne described the friendship, in his later years, as one of the most important of his life. Not in spite of the difficulty of it, partly because of it. Because Ford had seen him in full, had seen both the strengths and the limitations, had worked with both, had demanded something from both, and had chosen to invest in him anyway. Consistently, over decades. That kind of knowing, the kind that holds both what works and what does not, and invests in both, is the rarest form of friendship. Wayne also talked, in his final years, about the friends who had been present in the quieter dimensions of his life. Not in the professional arena, where the image was required, but in the ordinary hours. The people who could be with him when the role was set aside, who knew the version of him that didn't have the certainty, that was navigating the ordinary difficulties of a private life with the same imperfection that everyone else brings to their private life. Those friendships, he said, were the ones that had mattered most. Not the professional associations, as important as some of them had been. The ones where he could be fully himself, without the performance, without the management of impression, just there, as he actually was. In his last years, dealing with the illness that would eventually end his life, he spoke about these things with a directness that seemed to have been freed by the circumstances. He talked about the cost of the image, not as a complaint — he was not a man who complained easily — but as an honest accounting. The decades of presenting a particular version of himself had served many purposes, but they had also created a distance between the image and the person that had to be managed constantly. And the energy of that management, the ongoing work of maintaining the consistency of a persona that was not the whole of who he was, had its own cost. The friendships that mattered most, he said, were the ones that made that management unnecessary, where he could simply be, without the effort, without the performance, just the person. Maybe you know something of that. The particular relief of being in the presence of someone who already knows you, who has seen past whatever version you present in most situations, who knows the difference between the image and the person, and who chooses to stay. Not because the image is impressive, though it may be, but because the person underneath is someone they genuinely want to be with. That is the friendship that holds. Not the friendship that formed in the presence of the impressive version. The friendship that persists into the unimpressive version, into the difficult years, the doubting seasons, the times when the image is hard to maintain, and the reality underneath is what is actually present. That kind of friend does not need you to be at your best. They are there for the full range. And in being there for the full range, they give you something that no amount of professional success can provide: the experience of being genuinely known, of being chosen not for what you project, but for who you are, in all the ordinary imperfection of it. John Wayne spent much of his life in situations where being genuine was professionally difficult. The industry required a consistency of persona. The audience expected a specific John Wayne, and he delivered it reliably for 50 years. But in the private spaces, in the friendships that did not require the performance, he was something more than the image. Warmer, more uncertain, more genuinely human in the specific ways that the films could not quite contain. And the people who knew him in those spaces, who had access to the fuller version, described him consistently as someone worth knowing beyond the films. Funny, loyal, capable of genuine feeling, including the kind that the image did not allow. That person deserved to be known. And the friendships that allowed the knowing were the most important things, in the end, that he had. There is something worth staying with here, something about the relationship between the image we carry and the person underneath it. Most of us carry some version of this gap, not as dramatic as a film career, perhaps, but real. The version of ourselves that we present in professional contexts, and the version that exists in the quieter places. The competent, capable, reliable version, and the one that is less sure, less certain, less always equal to the moment. Both are real. Both are us. But only one of them tends to get the friendships that actually hold. The friendships that hold are the ones built on the fuller version, on both the strength and the uncertainty, on the competence and on what lies behind it, the ordinary human wish to be good at things, to matter, to be seen as someone worth something. Those more interior wishes are not less real than the competence. They are more real, often, more essentially what a person is. And the friendships that see them, that know you want what every human being wants, regardless of how impressively you project, the certainty, are the ones you will think of at the end of a long life as the ones that mattered. Is there someone in your life who knows you in that way? Who has seen past the competent version to the fuller one? Who is present for the reality, not just the projection? If there is, that friendship is worth everything you give it. Worth more explicit acknowledgement than it probably receives. Because the people who see us clearly and stay, who know us fully and choose to remain, are the rarest and most valuable presents a life can contain. So take a slow breath and think about who has known you in that full, unhurried, not only the best version way. Who has stayed through the seasons when the image was hard to maintain? Who has known both what you are most proud of and what you carry quietly? And who is still there? That person is worth something that is difficult to quantify. But you feel it in the particular ease of being with them, in the way that the management of impression simply is not required, in the rest that is available in their presence that is not available anywhere else. That rest is the gift of being known, and it is one of the finest things a life can hold. John Wayne knew it. In the quieter chapters, in the friendships that did not require the performance, in the presence of the people who had seen the whole of him and chosen to stay. He knew how rare that was, and so do you. One more thing worth naming. Being known is not only something that happens to you, it is also something you can offer to the people in your life who are carrying their own versions of the gap between the image and the person, to the ones who project a competence or a certainty or a particular version of themselves in most situations, but who are something more and more complex than that in the quieter places. Seeing through to that fuller version and staying and valuing what you find there is itself a gift of the most important kind. It says, I see the person, not just the projection, and I choose to be here for both. That choosing is, in the end, what friendship at its most genuine is. That choosing is what John Wayne found in the friendships that mattered. And it is what each of us can offer today to the people in our own lives who are waiting to be fully seen.